shocked.
Are the three of you want to answer? That's kind of a fundamental question. What do you look for if you're in a higher
I wouldn't be able to afford any of you. So I wouldn't be hiring anybody. What I would say is I did everything outside the box. So I would say, going through here, a lot of people think like, okay, I'm going to be a professor, or I'm going to go into research. And I think I would have enjoyed the professor thing. But
that's what we call it too, I think.
But that's pretty competitive. I'm up against all these cats, and that wasn't going to happen for me personally. I knew that, so I kind of threw some stuff to the wind and just said, you know what, if I'm meant to come back to this, I will in some way. None of you are in this for the money, obviously. You're in the wrong field if you're in it for the money. You're in it because you love it. And I eventually ended up doing something that still had to do, I knew I always wanted to start my own business, and I even looked into I got myself into graphic arts at one point, but it's easy to do what I do right now. I mean, I'm a scientist running a company and selling, but it's easy to do what I do right now because I love it. I talk about plate tectonics and have flashbacks of Dave Narr teaching me to surf. I can speak to filter feeders and red tide, and that's the stuff that I enjoy. And I ended up doing this, walkabout, and ended up back here. And I would say, if you're going down a path, and even as a business owner, I do this a lot, if you're going down a path and it's not working and you keep hitting these walls, it's okay to go backwards for a little bit and try another path and go down a different way. And I would say a big thing is, that I said at the beginning, is really who you know. It's all about building those bridges on your way up, because you're going to use them again to cross back down and then go back up again and cross over. And I still have opportunities that come from Pam, who will just randomly email me out of the blue, and that's a relationship of a major professor with me that I don't see, but we're still connected. And so I think invariably, if you really do like what you do, it ends up manifesting itself in your life somehow.
I don't hire, but I can reiterate.
You evaluate proposals, no?
I do, but I'm not the final selection official. Anyway, but I'd like to reiterate what you said about communication. In the course of working over there, I've come across a variety of job announcements, and invariably, on every single one of them is one of the things that you need is to be able to communicate effectively, both orally and in writing. So that's very important. And even just day-to-day work, obviously, we have to talk to a variety of people and a variety of levels. So writing or communicating on a scientific level is a lot different than communicating necessarily your science to someone who isn't a scientist. So that's also something to keep in mind. And I also think it's important what you said about networking, because if you, like I said when I was introducing myself, most of the things that I've done in my life, employment-wise, have come about from people that I've known, not necessarily me seeking out something, but anyway, so it all does, I think, come back to you. So.
What do you look for in colleagues?
I have hired quite a bit. I've put people on site in Forest Service regional offices around the country. I always ask people to bring their portfolio of maps they've made, or papers they've written, or PowerPoints they've presented. I look at what professional societies do you belong to. How many people here belong to at least two professional societies? Okay. Good for you. Have you been to their annual conferences? That's really important. That's where you make those connections, to find out who you want to work with and what you want to be doing. We were talking when we came in, I go to a lot of conferences. Basically, I'm in marketing, but I also run some projects. And I find that I work the vendor floor really hard. I don't want to sit in a booth and wait for people to to see what my competitors are doing, and I want to talk to them face to face about what they're up to, because we might have joint projects we could work on. So at conferences, you have the wide range of employment opportunities and technology opportunities that you won't find sitting at your desk or sitting in your office. So I look for that. You've been there, you've done it. As a student, you can volunteer and get into the conferences for free and go be a monitor in the room, but you still have lots of time to do it. And I look for good verbal skills, not you knows and like so and that sort of thing. But most of all, I don't know that you can make it to the top rung in many professions anymore if you don't have geospatial knowledge. If you can't manipulate your data in 3D or 2D in a GIS or remote sensing system, it's predominant. It's going to get more so. There's new satellite systems going up every year. Google just bought Skybox. Skybox is going to have 24 satellite constellation in 3 years that hits every place on the Earth 3 times a day. It's amazing. And what you have to remember is what people say you can't do, the half-life of that has gone from centuries to months with technology improvements. So take a dream and go for it, because I did, it crashed. I own a 2-person blimp, and it crashed. It flew through downtown St. Pete one night. 2 days before we were doing the grand opening, and it missed the Hilton, and it hit.
You guys are going to go out and count things in the bay, right?
You bet. And I haven't given up on it. Mainly because I'm writing the movie script, and somebody will buy it.
You made the St. Pete Times.
Oh yeah, I was below the fold. But don't give up your dreams. If you think that you can make a difference in a company, find that company and pursue them until they realize who you are and what you can do for them.
That was a great question. Any other great questions out there? Oh, you got to be great questions. I mean, I have one, but it's not about, only you guys got the floor, so. Okay, what should we look at?
There was a lack of interest.
Well, I know Chris is burning here, so I
can tell you that photosciences is doing our mapping of our seagrasses, so right there's that connection. I was sitting here with photosciences, why do I know that? And then as soon as we started talking, I'm like, holy crap, they got our contract for mapping seagrasses. So there you go.
And we've done that for the last 15 years.
Yes. Yeah.
For not just for you, but for the Water Management District. But one thing else I look for is an interest in history, because Katie, wasn't it you that said Walt Japp and them, they collect lots of data and they don't ever do anything with it. If you're into mapping or imagery, it goes back into the 30s where there's historic photography that we can now process in ways they never imagined. So it's all interrelated. It's like a time machine, and you can use it for beaches and for
Well, imaging is, that's one thing imaging is everything. It's mostly, if you can't image it, you can't see it very well. That's what I do. And look at the Hubble telescope. Look at the telescope. Without that technology, we'd be dead. Without the Hubble, just an image of what the Hubble telescope can provide us, a whole new view of the world. Imaging the body. Just look at the doctors are doing. The medical researchers are being able to image things in the body that we couldn't image before. So imagery is really huge, and data analysis is really huge too. Absolutely. So you got a ton of data. How the heck do you deal with it? So that's a big issue.
We're trying to automate.
Yeah.
And write models and do repetitive things so that the humans can do the interesting things.
Yeah. Right. Well, I guess the question I have is, what can we do? What would you suggest to the College of Marine Science? How would we change? What should we change? If you had to, go ahead and ask us a hard-nosed question. Like you ask your, ask the tough questions, Why is it that you keep doing this? Why do we still have 4 core courses? Are the core courses still, are they a waste of time, or should we still have the core courses? Or should we completely tear up our curriculum and throw it away and try something different? Or hire different people? includes you guys too. So.
I think that in my career, I have found a lot of importance on business skills and management, and that there is a natural fit between the business community and the marketing and the communications and education that the College of Marine Science could foster with either the USF St. Pete or Tampa campus that are challenging a lot of scientists now, even with grant proposals, where you have to be willing to say, this is my communication strategy for my results in order to get an NSF grant or something like that. Those are things that you kind of paid lip service to 5 years ago, but now you're not getting a grant unless you have a real good communication strategy for that. And I think that that's an opportunity that the College of Marine Science could take to both partner with other schools within the USF and maybe alumni and private business to have some of those alumni who have graduated and found themselves, well, I can do the transects, but I can't go have a client meeting and do the business development side of things of getting them to, buy my services, getting Pinellas County to, take me on as a contractor. That's just my suggestion. Thank you.
And in looking at the questions that Howard sent out, that Al was going to ask, what was missing here? Well, what I typed out was that I didn't have a readily available class on science communication, which includes presentation skills, marketing skills, media relationships. I had to learn media relationships really quick over at the Marine Lab. They did teach us a one-day thing, and I became a spokesperson. I knew all the TV people in town. I needed to do a public service announcement. I went to Bob Height, and he gave me a crew, and we went and filmed baseball guys saying, donate for the manatees.
Well, you crashed a blimp too, so that...
Yeah. Well, that was even before that. That didn't come until later. But that kind of a course, so, public speaking and project management. If you really, you can come out of here with a certified project management certification, that goes a long ways, because you're more readily available to administer your grants or your budget and know what's going on and track it from day one. I don't have one, but I've been through boot camp. The first week I worked for Greenwood and Namera, and they spend a lot of money to train us how to manage money and manage people and track it.
In some cases, they look for that as a credential to the PMP.
Yeah.
You're the perfect one to answer that question. Going from one side to the other side. I mean, I went through that. My experience was just know the material, become as knowledgeable as you possibly can, and then all of a sudden you're a professor and you have to manage grants and you have to be able to write proposals. You have to know what a program. I didn't know what a program manager was when I was a graduate student. So you certainly been on both sides. How would you?
Well, sorry, one
What
thing.
do you do now?
For you working for a federal agency, or did you just slip through it easily?
So my name's Chris, and I graduated from here in '98, and I actually, to recap, so I had plans, and none of them went where I thought they were going to go. So I came out of here going, academia sucks, I never want to put this crap anymore. I'm definitely not doing postdocs because they're a total waste of time. And I think I'm going to go into biotech because they make obscene amounts of money and my skill set fits there, so why not? Yeah, none of that went anywhere. So I did 2 postdocs in the end. And during the first one of them, I was able to do an internship at a biotech company and discovered I hated it absolutely and completely, and that they did not want to be doing that. And then ended up doing the second postdoc coming back here across the street at USGS, and then ended up going from that postdoc to my career with them. And I would argue that, so plans are overrated. As I heard from you, almost the better thing is to learn as much and as many varied things as you can, meet a lot of people, and then just be open to opportunities, because that's sort of where it's going to end up going, and that usually will be more effective than where you thought you were going, which doesn't usually work. Things I know, because I've had students in the department recently, there are a lot of things that CMS does now that they didn't do when we were students here that are incredibly helpful. So things like, there was, in the very first week of orientation, there was sort of a boot camp where they bring someone in and have them go through how to do a PowerPoint presentation well, in both
built in terms of, not putting a ton of text on slides and how to speak and carry it off, which was fantastic, and I heard really good things about that. Pam did a, science writing course, which I, cannot emphasize enough the importance of helping people learn how to write, because it does not come naturally to most people, and it really is an important skill to have. I agree that, there's more things that we could learn, but does CMS have to do it? I don't know. I would actually argue that as insanely, ludicrously busy as I felt and overwhelmed in graduate school, the sad truth is it gets worse later. And in fact, you have more free time than you think you do, and right now there are a ton of things out there through, free openings like Coursera or other places where you can take classes online that are put together by other universities and institutions to learn things like computer programming languages, which, depending on where you're going, it can be incredibly useful these days. Or more soft skills, things like marketing or negotiation. I mean, those opportunities are there, and many times they are free, and I really encourage you to take advantage of that, because you never know what you're going to end up using as your skill as you sort of work your way through where you end up going. Yeah, you do learn, you learn under fire. You get to where you're going and you start working, but I would agree that it is helpful if you had more of an idea of, some people, get thrown into it and naturally pick up how to manage budgets, and other people continue to be horrible at it. And so, yes, you could say that you get in there and you just learn it, but yeah, there are some things that would certainly help people to learn going in as opposed to just sort of figuring it out as they go along.
In my experience, there's no substitute. You have to have the experience. How do you teach experience? You can't. You just live it. You make mistakes and you learn from your mistakes, as they say, that sort of thing. I mean, graduate school shouldn't be 20 years, It should be, okay, learn enough and then get out and then know enough to become dangerous and then, follow whatever you like. But, I always go through this myself, because I went from getting a PhD and then writing a postdoc and writing proposals, and to me it was a whole different world. I was shocked. I was blinded to this. Now maybe that's just my generation. I don't know. Maybe today's students are a little more adept to being familiar with grant management and how the system works. As a graduate student, you don't know how the system works. You're just so involved in the science, preparing for comps, that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, there's this whole new world out there about how the world works.
Exactly. That's the thing. The problem is the system keeps changing faster and faster, just as
So I guess I just wondered, should we worry about that transition? Not worry about that transition? It'll just if you live enough years, that transition will happen. Or...
Well, that was the other thing, and that I remember. There was a third thing I can remember was Maya. I know has been teaching a sort of a class to sort of prepare. How to set up your CV, how to write grants, how you might interview or decide on a postdoc. So I mean, she has been teaching a class that covers some of those sort of transitional things, and I think that is a great thing to offer.
Accounting would be a really good one too.
Accounting?
Yeah, because I think no matter what field you're in, I'm in a different field than you really focus-wise. But if you get really good at your field, you don't get to do what you liked anymore to get there. So you end up being an accountant or a banker. It all comes down to money in the end. So now I'm saying everything that guy said when I first wanted to come to school here. But really, if you get really good at what you're doing, you don't do what you love so much anymore. I mean, I get pieces of it, but really, you need to know how to run a budget. You need to know accounting. CFOs are really expensive. Accounting, I think, is a really big one to know that, everybody in the end has to make money. We have to.
I think if you don't, probably one of the things that I had to unlearn was scientific writing. That does not work in my world. It was incredibly hard because I just thought I'd learned the right way, and when I got to my job, it was the wrong way. Scientific writing does not work in public sector.
Is that because of your audience?
It is a lot has to do with the audience. I have to write a lot of white papers, and it's usually to the Board of County Commissioners or to our county administrator. So right now we're working with National Fish and Wildlife and FWC on manatee protection zones on the west coast of Florida. They exceeded a federal threshold for manatee deaths related to boat hits on the west coast of Florida in, I think, 2007. And there's been we'll call it a permitting no-go. It's not called a moratorium, but a permitting no-go in the south part of the county for any type of multi-use docking facilities, and we've been working with them and having public hearings, and now it's going to the FWC's commission in November. And how do I convey this incredibly technically scientific thing, all of FWC's data that I have, in a one-page memo to the Board of County Commissioners? And what does this mean to the citizens, the boater community, the environmental community, all of that in one brief memo? And so I could have one big sign that says no legs now. But yeah, it is, all of it's clear, concise. You got to take out all the extra words. Literally, now when people give me memos and I ask folks to draft a memo, I just start going, no, needed words. Just start scratching out the words. You might want to consider writing classes, from a different perspective. Again, it's all dependent on what you want to do. If you're going to stay in academia, then there's this incredibly technical way to write. If you're not, you need a different writing style that allows you to be able to convey an incredibly difficult topic to any audience. And, if I have to explain manatees, and I just had to write a memo on the proposed waters of the United States rule and its potential impact to the county. The document that I had to review is like this thick. I've got one page. How do you explain to a public official, to your county administrator, what that means in that short of period, in that amount of space?
Well, let me take an opposite tack to that. One of the things, I've done a lot of public speaking, and one of the things that I try to do is to try to educate the audience. And we live, in my opinion, we live in a society that's scientifically illiterate. And science is becoming less respected, at least in some circles anyway. And so I try to, you can bend to the way they understand life, or you can try to educate them. Say, okay, here's a term I'm going to use, okay, like stratigraphy. Okay, oh, terrible word, but this is what it means, That's stratigraphy. Four syllables.
That is true. When you get the opportunity to be in front of them, I do that a lot.
Yeah.
But when you're told you're not giving a presentation, you're giving a memo, that's your only tool. Yeah, I agree. I do go in front of the board a lot, and probably the first 10 slides of every presentation I have are background. Get them to first understand the issue, and then...
Okay, so you're teaching the science.
Yes, teaching, absolutely. Very just interesting to the point that you made. There's a regional technical advisory committee for climate adaptation that actually USF